Hi, welcome to December's DIY. My name is Beth and I'm here to talk to you tonight about laundry. I know we all hate to do it. It doesn't really take that long, but it just seems like it's so tedious. The sorting, the washing, the drying, the folding, all so much of it. And then to add insult to injury, there's that cold water wash, delicate on low, hang to dry, lie flat. And I don't know about you, but I never seem to get it right until recently. So in the past, I've had the accordion style hanger that flattens but then folds out, and it has all these little arms on it and wooden dowels, and you lock this hinge in place, and I'd get it loaded up, everything just fine. And then the weight of my wet clothing would knock it down. So I upgraded and I got the new one, and it has wheels and it rolls around and it's got 2 racks, except it's also held together with dowels, and they often fall out of the bottom. It doesn't stay steady. It just never seems to work for long. I'm always fixing it. So I got online to that favorite land that we all love to tour through, Pinterest, and looked at lots of different ideas. I tried to figure out how I could make my own. I wanted one that came out from the wall, and that was not for me. I need to do stuff that I can do myself, and pretty quickly. I don't have lots of extra time. So I made one of these. Now, admittedly, you think, no big deal. It's some pipe and some wood. No big deal, right? But it's kind of cool in that it's long enough from here to here that you can hang a hanger and not have it bump the wall so your stuff isn't sitting sideways. And it's long enough in length, it's 3 feet long, so I could take a sweater or a beloved blouse or something else that really should hang flat and at least drape it over the edge. So that's what I did. I made one of these, and I have been loving it and couldn't wait to show it to you guys. So the first thing I did was go to a hardware store, and I got both a piece of wood. I got I'll show it to you, 1x6, which means it's 1 inch, not quite because they're never exact, close 3/4 inch wide, 6 inches from top to bottom. And I bought an 8-foot piece because I know for the area I'm gonna put mine in, I want 2. I got spoiled with that one on a roller. So I want 2. I want 1 up high and 1 down low so that I can do tons of laundry all at once and have it all knocked out. So I've got my wood, and I bought some pipe. So I bought a 3/4 inch pipe here. Ooh, they're gonna roll. A 3/4 inch pipe, and they come with these capped ends, and you just unscrew these. Then I needed an elbow. And again, if it's 3/4 inch in diameter, everything has to be 3/4 inch or they won't match up. And how this will eventually go together is it just screws on like so. And then these are called a nipple, and they should have threads on either end. You can buy them with threads on just one end. It's important to know you need threads on either end because you're gonna fit it inside there. And then at the very end, the flange will go on. So this is why you needed to have threads on both ends. Let's see if I can do this without putting it down. Highly unlikely. Oh, look, I spoke too soon. All right, so that's how it'll eventually all fit together. But while it's still in parts, I'm gonna take a sanding block. Sometimes I have loose sandpaper. Today I laid hands on these sanding blocks. This is 220, this is 320. Remember, the higher the number, the finer the block. It really doesn't matter for this. We're not trying to remove any imperfections or anything major. We just wanna scuff up the metal just a little bit. And then we would dust it off really good with a clean cloth. And we do that to all of our pieces. And then when we grab some spray paint, the brand I like to use, and there are lots of them, it doesn't really matter. It's your personal preference. I like to use Rust-Oleum, and I get the universal one because it has paint and primer. I think it goes on more even, and has a better coat. So I can do this in 2 coats typically, unless I mess up and miss a spot, but it's really nice even coverage. So then you would spray that on. It comes in lots of finishes. So we have flat, there's gloss, there's a semi, there's a satin. You have lots of options, and although I love shiny things, this time for mine, I went with just a flat black. So I'm gonna move my pipe over, kind of get this out of the way. And while that spray paint is drying, I'm gonna come over to my board. And since I tend to use the same colors throughout my house, and then I accent with different colors, I'm gonna stick with my same old gray chalk paint I've been using for a whole lot of stuff around the house. You know I'm a black, white, gray gal with hints of other colors, so this works for me. And when you find what works for you, I say stick with it. So I'm gonna open my chalk paint. I gave it a good shake, but I'm still gonna stir it. And I reuse my stir sticks over and over. This one's actually cracked, I've had it so long. So this one will probably have to go in the garbage after today, but I use them literally till they wear out. That's a thing too. I like to get the most use out of things that I can. And I'm also using a pretty inexpensive chip brush. You can buy a fancy brush if you have really nice, whoops, I flung paint everywhere. If you have a nice brush and you want to use that, that's totally fine. This is what I had that was handy, and it's going to work fine for these purposes too. So typically I would start at one end of my board after I had done the same prep with the sanding block or the sanding paper, just to remove any little imperfections, get the board ready to absorb that paint, wipe it down with a clean cloth. Like I said, I'd normally start down here. I'm going to do a little in the middle so you can see how easy chalk paint is to work with, because then I'm going to actually lay out the pipe on the board and show you. And I want to make sure that you don't miss that. So, super easy. It's not a big piece of furniture that I have to work with a lot of detailed woodwork or anything. And you really shouldn't probably paint it as much as I am. Do a couple strokes, get it kind of even. That stuff actually dries and flattens out as it dries. And it'll look really beautiful when it's all done. With chalk paint and this brand, and they're all a little different. This brand wants you, it says it'll be dry in an hour, and to wait 2 hours to recoat. So I would do that, and then 2 hours after that, I would hit it with whatever sealer I was gonna use. I like to do a nice matte poly, but I do the water-based one because cleanup's so much easier, and I'm all about making it easy. So once my parts were all together, everything's dry, the pipes are black, everything worked out great, and it's all ready, it's time to assemble. So let me finish putting these pipes together. I'll show you how easy it was to assemble this. I'm gonna slide this back. Flange on. You might notice when you're doing it yourself that when you attach all of your pieces together, it might feel like this piece is a little loose in here and on this elbow. And that's because we're trying to get it all to line up perfectly, right? Doing this wrong? Gotta be smarter than the pipe, I guess. Let me try it this way. Well, I do like to make things hard for myself. I'm gonna backtrack. It's little, but it does get weighty. Oh, it felt like like that thread had a little burr on it almost at the beginning of it too, so maybe that was working against me. So these I've gotten as tight as I can into the elbow, and this will be tight but maybe have a little more give, and that's okay because it's in there and it's connected. But we also have to make sure it'll sit flush on our board. So that's why, yeah, this little quarter turn, I could get it really tight, but it's not gonna match up on my board, and I really need it to. Feels like my board might even be warped a little bit. So I'm gonna measure from the end of one flange to the other, and I'm at just 41 inches and maybe a smidge, right? Then I'm gonna measure my board, and that is 48 inches. So I have 7 inches to split between either end. So to get this as even as I can, I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna measure 3.5. And again, you know I'm so precise on everything, not even a little bit. So it's okay if it's 3.5 or 3 3/8, not quite 100% perfect. This one is pretty perfect on this end. And I'm just gonna use those guides, those little pencil marks, as where I want the edge of my flange to be, so that I have pretty even space on either side. Then we would take our little drill, screw gun and drill, and I love this guy. And I'm gonna drill a little pilot hole, because pilot holes are always a good idea. If you're working with a wood piece like this, it'll keep the wood from splintering. And if you're drilling into a wall, it'll keep the plaster. We have those old plaster walls and they crack and big chunks come out. So I always like to have a board underneath so that I can drill right through. And I'm gonna go to the middle. You know what? I think I wanna do it like this. I think I wanna trace them. And set this down. Okay, now, oh, what side am I doing, you guys? I'll do this side. I think it'll be easier for you to see. So I have my 4 holes. I'm gonna go right in the middle of them, or as close to that as I can. And that's why I put a board underneath. It's a sad thing that during doing this, you can't feel it, but I can feel it when it pops through that first board, which is a great thing, but sometimes you don't feel it right away, and now you've gone into your dining room table, which is not a good thing. So I'll repeat this, and because this one's hanging over the end, I won't worry about that board, but I will get a good hold. And there we go. Then I'm gonna switch that out for my screw gun so I can attach these. So I've gotten everything on there. I'm gonna set them back up. Make sure everything lines up. And then, the way I hung this on the wall was to take 2 small screws, and I just had a mismatch of screws in a little bucket, kind of like every time we build something, we have extra parts, we throw it all in the bucket, so that when I need something, I can dig through there. And I'm gonna put them across from each other, and it doesn't matter which 2 you use, because I'm just using this to attach my pipe piece to the board, and I'm going to use different screws to attach it to the wall, but you do want them to be across from each other so there's a little balance, whoopsie, in how that's hung up. Knocked it out of alignment here. All right, the very last thing we would do is go into the room of your choosing, find that spot on the wall, mark your wall, take your screw gun and drill your pilot holes, and then attach your board with these larger screws. These for me are a large drywall screw. They're 2.5 inches long. You can get wood screws of any size and any diameter that you need, but for me, I do a lot of these little projects at home, and if I buy a big box of a certain type of screw, the main thing to me is that it's got a thread and a pointy end, because I know I can get it to sink into a stud or into the wall and hold. If I don't know where the studs are, you can buy a handy little thing called a stud finder. You can look that up on YouTube and find out how to use that, but they're super easy to use. Just make sure your screws are long enough to get through drywall or plaster and into that stud. And if you don't have a stud finder, you don't have the time, patience, or money to go grab one, and you just want to get that up, you have these alternatives. There are these little plastic parts you can get also at that hardware store, and you would screw a little or drill a little hole in the wall, slightly smaller than this, tap this in with the hammer and sink your screws right into it, and that just holds it better on the wall. So, I don't know what you're gonna watch first, but I have a whole pile of delicate cold wash, cold rinse, hang dry items, and I can't wait to get to it. I hope you enjoyed this month's DIY with Beth. Stay tuned, because January will be bringing you something all new and on a totally different kind of vibe. So have a great night, and I hope you have an even better tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out with me. Bye.